one thing I find interesting is you're saying that there's this sweet spot in the middle.
Yes.
Where you still get the upside.
You get dynamism.
You think there's a sweet spot in the middle?
And decency.
It's a very narrow sweet spot, and it's very hard to achieve because Germany has really tried so hard, and they've like their economy is collapsing. Their economy is going so badly at the moment, and they've tried everything. They've got workers have to be on the board, for example, of every company. You've got to have a worker on the board. So they're like doing as much as they can to do inclusion, and the German economy.
Okay, but so where has it worked?
Okay, but here's the thing: it is simply not fair to say the German economy is collapsing. Like, have you been to Germany?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, have you been to Stockholm?
But
like, these places are incredibly high functioning.
Yeah, there's definitely a forward momentum, but the German car industry is getting hollowed out right now.
China.
China's doing that.
Okay, but just because workers are on the board of German companies and German people are unhappy, you can't necessarily connect these things.
I just want to acknowledge, though, that like there are places like Dubai, which are very close to laissez-faire capitalism with a sovereign wealth fund. And just hold on. If you talk to someone who lives in Dubai, they freaking love Dubai. Like they're the happiest people. And they talk. They talk
the millionaires or the people working?
Entrepreneurial people.
Yeah, the rich people,
right?
not the poor brown people who are.
Well, I mean,
because they bus Indians in, don't they?
They yes, and also when I talk to a lot of the Uber drivers there, and I talk to people who work in cafes there and all that, so they're all quite pro Dubai as well.
Isn't it
okay, but that's because their other options are horrific.
Yeah,
it's probably more extreme inequality, isn't it?
It's
more extreme inequality.
It's extreme inequality, but because the place is growing, until recently, obviously, because the place is growing, it feels like there's a rising tide for everybody. There's something about economic growth that makes people very, very happy, and there's something about a lack of economic growth that makes people miserable here in the UK, for example.
Okay, but just again, Dubai is a place, the UAE, has been powered by the most extraordinary gusher of free cash probably the planet has ever seen. I mean, you can look up on your iPad there, the tailwind that economy gets from the unlimited resources.
I wouldn't say that's why people love Dubai. They love it because of the entrepreneurial vibe. Like
who loves it?
Like ambitious people.
Yeah, so this is the rich
the excitement.
people.
Well,
yeah,
no,
rich white people go there.
I see young people who want to have a crack,
and they're because they're rich relative to the people doing the work, the labour.
What they're looking for is a place where their work will be rewarded. Let's imagine the UK, where your ability to get onto capitalism, your first million or your first 2 million, is very easily low taxed in order to get things going for you economically. I just want to see a situation where ambitious...
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, like you're ambitious people. Like what I hate is that I see these young people who are really super smart. I wish they were here building. And they're like, you can't succeed in the UK. They'll just tax it off you. As soon as you earn anything, they take it.
What if you're not ambitious?
And they leave. I think you're benefited by a lot of the ambitious people. So when you get if you get 1 in 10 people who are entrepreneurial or 1 in 100 people who are entrepreneurial, they're creating optionality. They're creating companies.
Do you think the US is this? The US is sort of set up, the American dream. This is more of a US approach, isn't it? Well, and what we have there is higher inequality.
I'll give you to one extreme. The US, you hit the top rate of income tax when you hit $700,000. Mm-hmm. In the UK, it's $100,000, and it immediately goes to 60% tax, 62% tax, and then it drops to 45% after that. But there's this kind of like.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's this so weird.
I should know that. But
it's this insane thing where you basically pay 20%, 40%, 60%, 45%, and it's this kind of.
Fine, but to the point.
Yeah, you should probly fix that.
People leave.
The US approach sounds more like what you're saying.
People are leaving to the US. Like a lot of Brits are actually going to the US.
And the US has higher inequality, which means it's probably more likely that the pitchforks will come out.
Well, for an ambitious person, they don't care about inequality, right? Inequality is the opportunity to get ahead.
Yeah, they might not, but from a social perspective, the pitchforks are probably going to come out sooner in the US because of that inequality than in somewhere else.
They seem to be coming out here in a big way. Like
they're coming out here, but they're also coming out in the United States.
Look at Zach Polanski is gaining a huge political movement.
Zoran Mandani in the UK, in New York, is We're seeing a rise of socialism in the United States.
Okay, but Zoran Mandami calls himself a socialist because he does not have another word for what he is doing.
He has said seize the means of production. He's said it. And he said take houses off landlords. Like he's a card-carrying socialist.
Yeah, but he hasn't done any really socialist things. I just think that there's a bit of a confusion. But asking wealthy people to pay a little bit more tax is not socialism. Standing up grocery stores in food deserts because no grocery store will do it because it's not profitable enough is not socialism. This is the government provisioning benefits to citizens, fixing potholes, making bike ramps, whatever the stuff he's doing. These are not socialist things. What they are is not strictly neoliberal things, which is just like letting rich people run roughshod over everybody else.
The thing that I see with, say, a food desert and a store is that the tax system is so punitive that a small opportunity like setting up a grocery store with all the taxes and all the regulations and all the stuff the government puts on you, it's just not worth doing it. There are better opportunities out there. Like, I'm not talking about remove it for rich people. I'm saying for startups, for small businesses, for businesses that employ less than 200 people. If you basically create very positive conditions for small businesses to get started, they will set up a grocery store in a bad neighborhood because they go, yeah, you know what? I can figure out how it works in this.
Do you think there's a chance that we have a bit of a bias as entrepreneurs? Everyone at this table is an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, I think a lot of mine might be some trauma or whatever. I had a bias towards setting up a business and taking that risk, whereas like my other three siblings, they didn't do that. And I don't know what I did to have that bias within me. Like, if you really think about it, it was probably something my parents didn't intend to do, which meant that at 18, when my three siblings went to university and sort of followed that more, one could say, safer path, I dropped out.
How angry were your parents when you dropped out?
Oh, they didn't speak to them. My mum was, my mum's Nigerian as well, so she left school when she was a child, didn't get an education, can't read, can't write.
That must have been a tough conversation.
Is an understatement of what happened. But for whatever reason, that's the path that I took. And I can acknowledge that I'm in a bit of a minority.
Yeah.
And I think I sometimes consider, like, maybe I don't realize that through privilege or through some genetic privilege or whatever, I had this particular orientation towards like entrepreneurialism that maybe other people don't always have. Yeah. And that means that the grocery store.
I get crucified in the comments. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone can be an entrepreneur. I've never said that.
But the grocery store analogy there is someone would start that grocery store if it was easier.
But
not everybody would.
There's always a risk to reward ratio, and government brings in all sorts of regulations, and government only really thinks about big businesses. If you talk to anyone in government, small businesses don't exist, and they just simply think, why hasn't Tesco done it, or why hasn't like Walmart done it?
Yeah, right? I've never started a business in the UK, but I can tell you that in the United States, the barrier to setting up a grocery store in a food desert is not the regulation, it's Safeway. It's the supply chain. Yeah. It's all the stuff that you've described, which makes it incredibly difficult for somebody to operate a single location grocery store.
Like your friend's
anywhere.
pub.
Yeah,
right?
And this is
So what do you do about that?
So what I would do is I would, and again, in the United States, we used to have lots of laws that pointed the economy towards small businesses. So if I was in charge, I would impose a much higher minimum wage, but I would do it progressively. All the labor standards, all of the regulations would be imposed progressively. And in terms of regulation, I would make it like for a big company, there's a lot of regs, right? You have to follow every rule to the T. For a small business, you have a lot more flexibility.
Yeah.
It's because we need the standards, but it turns out to be really hard as a single proprietor, even to read the manual, right?
Yeah.
To know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So to me, it would all be progressive. So it would be easy to get capital, easy to start a business, relatively unencumbered by regulation, although constrained to a certain extent.
Some extent, yep.
There are terrible things that small business people do too.
Wait, how do you make it easier to get capital?
Oh, you could have government programs that were designed to help
Well,
small businesses get off the ground.
we have the British bank that underwrites for the first 25,000 of loans.
Yeah, we used to have the Small Business Administration in the United States that did a lot of that work.
Yeah, so we have a lending institution here that is 75% underwritten by government for £25,000 startup loan, right? So there is some schemes that can work. I started all my companies on a credit card. The key thing is there's a difference between entrepreneurials and startups that are intending to scale and just small businesses that want to exist as a small business. I'm really big on the idea that we want communities that have lots of small businesses, even if they have no intention to scale and exit and any of those sorts of things.
Right.
That
old-fashioned thing, right? Where you just had a grocery store.
Yeah, and it's a good and it's good to do
and you
that.
weren't trying to create Walmart.
Yeah,
you just wanted to run a grocery store.
Yeah,
it's hard though, isn't it? Because if
you want to be CBS you want to be a network.
But with a grocery store idea, if you've got mum and pop grocery store here, then next to it you have, let's say, I don't know, in the UK it's called Spar, which is a grocery store, 7-Eleven. The problem is if those are next to each other and one has economies of scale, i.e. 7-Eleven can buy the cucumber for 20% of the cost of the mum and pop shop, then if you're on that street, the 7-Eleven is going to survive.
That's why we tilt towards
the
small
United
business.
States used to have laws that expressly prohibited that.
And why did they get rid of them?
Neoliberalism.
So they got rid of the restrictions on...
Yeah, there used to be express laws to make sure that big companies could not buy raw materials cheaper than small companies. Mm-hmm. Like when I was young, when I was your age, if you wanted to buy a competitor, you were sweating bullets because that had to be reviewed by a body. And if they thought that you were consolidating too much, they would just say no.
But if you I think about all my friends that have opened retail stores through their companies, and they only do that when they get really big because their e-com business is supporting it. So if you think about, I know the Gymsharks, the Represents, Interactive. So you can't...
Okay, with respect to retail, you are largely correct. It depends on what kind of retail. Like you could have a gym, you can't e-commerce a gym, or, there are all kinds of retail, some of which is somewhat immune from e-commerce and some of which is getting destroyed by e-commerce. It doesn't matter if we're talking about retail. They were regional manufacturing companies, regional everything.
Sure.
And it all went away. And you have never experienced a world in which that used to exist. Like your entire business experience is this sort of neoliberal world of giant companies.
That's true. And the world I grew up in,
we're like you're young, medium, old,
right? But I remember what it was like to go to the video store and select videos from the video store. I remember what it was like. Yeah. Like I remember going to the CD store and listening to music and talking to the retail employees. When I was growing up, the cool kids worked at the CD store, the geeky kids worked at the bookstore, and everyone else worked at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And all of those business models are gone.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. We need to kind of tip back towards small business experimentation being protected and all of that.
Yeah.
The other thing too, and I should raise this about minimum wage and giving people more money, the bottom half of taxpayers in the UK pay 9.5% of all the income taxes. The government could remove taxes off of 50% of workers in one move, and it would cost $33 billion, and you just get rid of that. And then every single person in the bottom half of income earners gets a 10% pay rise to 15% pay rise, right?
I love it. No, so where do we get the $32 billion from?
Just keep in mind, their budget is $1.4 trillion.
I know. But we're going to have to...
1.4 trillion. You're talking about this much to take 15 million people.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, where does the money... Because I know what's going to happen. Keir Starmer is saying they found this $20 billion black hole in the finances. And that's the reason why they're saying they've had to cut back on pensions and these kinds of things. So if we add another 30 billion to that, where do we get the money from?
You're talking about reduce the amount of administrative burden to tax 15 million people and keep on top of the tax on 15 million people. Just the sheer volume of people who have to work at HMRC.
I completely agree.
All of this insanity.
No, but I'm saying, where does the money come from?
Yeah. So out of 1.4 trillion, I'm pretty sure we could find half of 1% of it or whatever to get these number of people out of tax. I think we could tax big corporations who are taking the piss. And I also think the economic spending rounds of getting those people, the poorer half of people should not be paying tax. If you give them more money, they'll spend more money, right? They're not
right? I agree with you. So you're saying tax big corporations more in the UK at point of consumption?
Personally, I would make it very similar to a broadcast license, that it's a fixed fee that's very hard to wiggle out of.
So if let's say I'm an OpenAI.
Yeah, you might have a broadcast license to pay to access this market.
So you're going to charge, I'm going to charge OpenAI 4 billion, 5 billion to access our market.
Well, for example, Facebook is very much broadcasting videos and content all the time. So is YouTube, so is Google, all that sort of stuff. So you just simply say, guys, the cost of doing business in this country, if you want access to this market, is a fixed broadcast license fee of 500 million a year or whatever it is. And you just say, based on the number of views that you guys get and how much attention you suck out of our economy, we just essentially tax the attention. You're literally, if people are spending an hour a day on their phone doom scrolling, that is a broadcast. You're broadcasting to our people, so therefore we've got a broadcast license. So those are the types of things that I would look at, because they're very hard to wiggle out of.
Do you think then these companies like an OpenAI would then, as we said earlier, just increase the subscription fee in this market? And you see this sometimes where in certain countries something is cheaper. I remember going to I used to go to the United States to buy my Apple products because it was cheaper there.
Yeah.
And then in the UK, it cost me like not even a little bit more. It was like hundreds of dollars more to buy a laptop here. The same laptop in this market versus this one cost different amounts of money.
They may choose to try and pass on that consumption tax to consumers. Maybe they do that. Maybe we could try and legislate against that they have to essentially be on parity with where they are in other markets, that they have to charge parity. If we don't do anything, we essentially have nurses and like teachers and all the people who are in the normal 50% of the economy, whose job is now to hold up the economy, while Starbucks doesn't pay taxes, while Amazon doesn't pay taxes, while Google doesn't pay taxes.
And Steve, I think all your questions are really, really good, but they all point to the same thing, which is that the economy is a collective action problem, right?
But now it's a global action problem.
It's a global collective action problem, and if we want robust solutions to these problems, we're going to have to robustly coordinate activity across the world. And during the Biden administration, they tried really hard to do this global profit tax, but that collapsed under the weight of pressure. But all of your questions I think are really good, but they all point to the same fundamental weakness of governance.
And Nick, you need to talk to your billionaire mates and also say, if we don't start investing in the economies that we do business with, which you are saying, right? Of course, right?
But essentially, it's a lonely business. I'll just tell you.
But it's like those CEOs of those companies. You drain the whole economy out, and then what next? Like,
I think on this pass-through problem, I was looking at different ways that this ends up being applied. So if you think about the Big Mac costs different things in different states depending on how much tax that state charges. So in Oregon, the Big Mac is $8, whereas in Chicago, it's almost $9. If you think about like bookstores, you can buy one book on the high street for $20. The same book online is $10 because they're passing through the costs. So it's conceivable that if we say to big corporations, right, you guys are going to pay a bigger tax to sell into the UK, then the UK consumer, that they might pass that on to the UK consumer. And they might look at different markets, and because they might say as a company we want to make 30% margins.
Also, the UK
and the
consumer,
way to make 30% margins in the UK is to bump the cost.
UK consumer could say, I'm going to use a VPN and pretend that I'm going to be in a different market and pay a lower price. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. You still have to pay the broadcast license if you want to be available in our country. These are hard problems, and we need to know who is the person that we're targeting. It's the BlackRocks of the world. It's the big banks of the world. It's the big mortgage.
I had a private conversation with the CTO of a very large company, technology business, and he was saying to me, he goes, I don't think the UK understands the situation it's putting itself in, and the EU, with all this regulation. He said to me that we sell this particular product. It's a physical product. And because the UK and I think EU have put this new law in where you have to have removable batteries, interestingly, the unintended consequence of that is we have to stock more lithium batteries, more of them go into landfill, and also your devices break because they're no longer waterproof. So it's harming the environment. And also, he said, the thing you guys don't realize is that you're actually not a big market anymore for us. And because South America's coming online, we actually don't have to sell the product here. And you think about this in terms of some of the regulations around AI as well. When a new product launches on a ChatGPT, it goes in the US first because of regulations. Yeah. And then maybe
it goes in the US first because it's the biggest market.
Biggest market, but also our regulations around some software and GDPR and all these kinds of things means that sometimes we just don't get the features. And sometimes in our history of building the previous business I was in, as creators, we would sometimes have to wait 12 or 18 months to get the same tools that my competitors in the United States could use. Monetization tools, they'd have the monetization tools first, and then we'd have to wait 18 months.
The economy is a set of trade-offs. Like, that is the problem. Like, economics is called a set of the actual definition of economics is making trade-offs and picking your trade-offs. I totally get it. Like, regulation does actually suck for consumers and for businesses. And like the EU is now over-regulated to the extent that you can't even take a lid off of a bottle without, the government being involved with how the lid comes off the bottle. And it's killing our dynamism. We are really just like...
And the US is under-regulated, and if you buy chicken in a store and don't cook it...
Could be anything.
1 in 3 chances you'll get either E. coli or salmonella.
Well,
right?
And your life expectancy is lower.
Exactly.
And
so
everyone
it's all trade-offs.
Everyone who eats in the US...
all trade-offs.
Comes back from the US and goes, oh my goodness, I hate eating food in the US.
Yes,
it's all
terrible.
trade-offs.
It's all trade-offs.
Does this not then mean our ultimate conclusion of this conversation is around morals and ethics?
Yes.
Around the trade-offs that we think are the right ones to make?
Yes.
And so it's a question really of morals and ethics.
Yes. Human flourishing. Yes. 100%.
The purpose of the economy is to improve human lives. The way to do this is to massively maximize small business power, because when people...
I think it's more complicated than that.
When I have to work shoulder to shoulder with my workers, I treat people well, right? When I'm a mega corporation who have faceless workers down on the factory floor that I will never meet, I will never sit next to on a plane, I will never come in contact with my workers, I can treat them however I like.
Why do you think that's reductive, Nick?
Well, I think that what Dan is saying is true and massively insufficient. Of course. I mean, we're in violent agreement about the small business point. Like, I don't want to be naive and think we should go back to the 60s or something like that. Like, I don't think that's true. But again, here's what the new economics shows: that corporate consolidation increases prices, lowers wages, decreases consumer choice, and decreases the rate of innovation. Right?
And I 100% agree.
Because innovation, again, the conventional view of innovation, the conventional economic view of innovation is this sort of great man theory. Is you have this smart, rich guy who's sitting somewhere and he or she has this amazing idea, and that's innovation. That is not what innovation is. Innovation is always combinatorial. Technology makes itself out of itself. You start with a rock. The rock was our first technology. And you did a lot of stuff with rocks. And we also had sticks. Actually, sticks were our first technology. But you tie a rock to a stick, you have a hammer, a spear, an arrow, an axe, a shovel. It goes on and on and on. And what that means in terms of policy is that because innovation is combinatorial, the more diverse people in a network who come together with different ideas and different sets of experiences, that is what drives the rate of innovation. And this is mathematically demonstrated that a diverse group of people working on a problem will absolutely consistently outperform a homogeneous group of high performers.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.